Okay, welcome to my session. I'm creating a Lexeme database from scratch. I've noticed that I've gotten 1 hour instead of 30 minutes because I was supposed to provide an introduction for the absolute beginners as well. It was a bit unexpected since I was actually quite busy in advance, and I know Asaf does really high quality beginner introductions, so I'm a bit scared right now to take his place, but I'll try it. Maybe it's also good if someone else for once gives a small introduction into Wikidata lexemes. So the goal of my session is that once it ends, you'll be a bit closer to answering these questions here. First, what is a lexeme and why do I need it? And once you've reflected a bit on that question, maybe there will be that intention to also contribute a bit. And the follow-up question to that is, of course, how can I contribute? Maybe I'll start explaining what a lexeme is. You can imagine it like a dictionary entry, but it's a bit more sophisticated than that. You can add way more information than you would commonly find in a dictionary. Dictionaries also are just an alphabetic, usually an alphabetic list of words that a language possesses. But in case of lexemes, it's not about that alphabetical order. It's about describing that word to the greatest extent possible in a structured way. That also makes the Wikidata lexemes a bit different from the project Wiktionary that we know. Wiktionary is I hope you all know Wiktionary, I don't want to assume you know it. That is the Wikimedia project which basically imitates dictionaries. You have an entry for each word, there you get the meanings of each word, some hints to the translation. It basically works like a dictionary based on Wikimedia software, which is not, well, the Wikimedia software was not really designed for Wiktionary, which is why Wiktionary looks a bit difficult to edit, which admittedly the Wikidata lexemes are as well, but I think long-term it's not really supposed to be edited mainly manually. There are going to be tools that make editing lexemes easier for you, but I think it's still important to try to take the first steps editing these manually to just understand how a lexeme works, how it looks like. I'll maybe start by showing you an example. If you could switch to my computer screen. This is an example of a lexeme. It was 600,000, that's why I picked it. It's coincidentally, zoom in, okay. How do I zoom in? That way, probably. It is a Ukrainian word, zaklepkovy. That word has its senses here, so you can see that it's made of rivets. That's the meaning of that word. And you can now see that, like in a dictionary, you first have the statements that classify the word. You have the paradigm class, like you often have it in dictionaries, and you even have, again, like in dictionaries, some usage examples, and they link to concrete forms of the word. These forms can also be found further down here, and this is now something you won't find commonly in a dictionary. You see all forms that this word can occur in a language, not just the default masculine nominative singular case, but also the inflected forms. That means when a word changes in a language, depending on the words that surround it, it's commonly called inflection. These features can all be specified. What's also interesting is that you can further make statements about these forms and, for example, specify pronunciation. This is a special feature of Ukrainian that stresses important. For example, the symbol here means that this word is supposed to be pronounced zaklepkove and not, for example, zaklepkove or zaklepkove. This makes it possible, let's say, for a learner to see how a word is supposed to be pronounced. Yes, you could also add further statements. For example, some Wikidata lexemes, not this one, but this is generally possible, can also include the IPA transcription. The IPA is the International Phonetic Alphabet. It is possible to learn this alphabet and then read it and recognize that way how a word is supposed to be pronounced, even if you have never heard it before in your life. And now you might wonder, well, how do I know how to transcribe such a word? And that's an important part of this session, I think. It is important to document the way you are entering your information into these lexemes. Each language has its unique features. Here we have one feature for Ukrainian, which is imported in Ukrainian, namely the stress position. Other languages might have other features that are important to highlight in such a form. And it is important to document all this on a page to make it possible for other editors who are editing as well to remain consistent with what has already been done. And also to allow people who are using the data to be able to rely on it. They can follow the documentation, program their scripts that fetch the data, that query the data, and for all that consistency is very important. So that is also one of the first steps that you, if you decide to contribute, will have to do with. You will be thinking a lot about how to structure forms in an ideal way. What's special about these lexemes is that they were introduced in 2018, but that doesn't mean that they are is a tremendously big community of Wikimedians who are actively editing the lexemes. There are in fact still many, many words missing. There's much documentation still missing, even for big languages like German, English. They usually have a large quantity of automatically imported words, but these words lack senses. Senses are these things here that explain the meaning of the words. In fact, these statistics also can be viewed in a tool, but I fear I have not opened it. Asaf, can you remind me how the tool is called again with the statistics? Odia. What's it? Ordia, right. Ordia, right. So here you can view the number of forms, number of lexemes of certain languages. Wait. I should have looked at this in advance. I've used this tool before, but it's a bit time ago. Here, German. Here, I found it. So here, if it once loads, we get some statistics for German. And here we can see that overwhelmingly nouns have been imported, for example. This is really interesting. Also, if you're editing a language that is new, to be able to see what kind of lexemes can exist at all. It's not just nouns, adjectives, but maybe also prefixes or numerals or prepositions. All this stuff can be part, even idioms, conjunctions, all this can be turned into a lexeme. And that makes it really difficult to think of a proper documentation of all this. But this is important, and you all are kind of pioneers when it comes to this, because for most languages there is no documentation yet. So you would be the first person working on it. If the language is a bit bigger, which means it has a documentation or just an engaged community member, then you have the advantage that there's at least one other person who has already invested some thoughts in how to structure this data properly. And you can then get in touch with that person and discuss together how to improve all that data. Why is it important to have such structured data on Wikidata at all? I already mentioned that it's structured, which means it can be more easily be parsed by bots, automated. There are tools that can be used to fetch this data. You can have some tools that teach you the language. A famous example on Wikidata is the Der die das tool for German, where you can where you get shown one word that is fetched from Wikidata, and you just select the gender of that word, and then you get shown if you were right or not. I would like to show it, but unfortunately, in advance of the session when I tried it, that script did not work. So I fear the tool is down at the moment, but I hope it's clear to you what kind of application of this data it is. That you can fetch data from Wikidata and then build on top of it. Another personal, why I got interested in Lexemes, this is because I'm a student at university. I'm studying 3 languages there, Lithuanian, Latvian, and Ukrainian. And for this, as a learner, what does a learner do? He often consults books that contain lexicographical data, that contain words, that contain translations, that contain inflection tables, for example. In case of Latvian, there is in fact an AI company, Tilde, that is working on all this, which means the situation is pretty good for Latvian. In case of Ukrainian, you also have that SUM dictionary from the National Institute for the Ukrainian Language, which also means they have a lot of data out there, and they even plan to release it under a public license, but it's not yet completed that process. At the moment, you can only fetch words, I think, up to the letter P. So for all the other words, you have a problem. In case of Lithuanian, there's unfortunately nothing. I, in fact, discovered a scientific, a summary of a scientific paper in Lithuanian, where someone a few years ago has considered creating a lexicographical database for Lithuanian. And the idea behind this is in principle the same as behind Wikidata, which shows there's actual need also in science for such a database. But they eventually concluded it's all difficult, it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of resources to program everything. And the good thing about Wikidata is it's all already there. You can start right now building this database. The infrastructure is already being built, still being improved, but the fundament, it's already there. You can start now building such a database, and there's no pressure on you to complete it all within a month or a year or 2 years. It's a big community project where you can all participate. Yeah, if you want, we could maybe try to create a lexeme and then look at what things are difficult maybe in your language. Because I know from my experience from Lithuanian, there are a lot of issues that come up if you just try to create one lexeme. For example, when I last week created one, I was wondering, there was the word mokytojas in Lithuanian, and that word has actually multiple possible, not just spellings, but also pronunciations. So you can also say mokytojas with another ending. And a question for me was, how do I get that all into one lexeme, while still keeping it one lexeme and still including all the data? And a nice person who is invested in the creation of Russian lexemes has helped me, and he recommended me to just use the pronunciation feature and add all these forms, essentially duplicating the entire word, and then having separate forms for all these words. So that would be one challenge that I immediately faced. Or there is the example of masculine and feminine words. In German, you have the word Lehrer. Again, this is the same word as I mentioned previously, teacher. And you have the word Lehrerin, which is the same word, but with a suffix that marks that this word is going to be feminine. And how do you treat this? The current solution on Wikidata is to have two separate lexemes, Lehrer and Lehrerin, and just pretend like Lehrerin derives from Lehrer attached by the suffix in. But then when I thought, how do I apply this to Lithuanian, I realized that does not really work out. There is simply no neutral word root. You just have either the masculine ending or the feminine ending. You can't have something in the middle, and creating a separate lexeme for that also makes no sense. It makes more sense to treat it all as one lexeme with different endings that have different marking for each gender. So maybe the German solution is not ideal, but there might also be arguments speaking in favor of the current solution. I don't know, I have not been a part of these discussions that led to the current implementation. So if in case any one of you speaks a language, it doesn't not really matter which, so any one of you should be able to come up with an example, and we'll take a look if that word already has an entry, and if not, we are going to try to create a lexeme, and then we'll be seeing which parts are going to be difficult. Who wants to dare to make an example in any language? Ideally one where I can, well, type it.
L4177 is pretty complete. You want to show a nice one?
Let's see. Oh, wait. That way is shorter. 4177. Yeah, so here we have the English word let, which is the category verb. We also have the statements again, that it's an irregular verb. We have again the quotes, references. I suppose there will also be somewhere an indication right here, the identifiers. It's also an important part of Wikidata that you can reference dictionary entries. So you don't, it would also not be allowed because of copyright, but you don't have to copy and paste everything from a dictionary. You can point to a dictionary if you know there's information, and that's already going to help a lot if people directly know where to look in a dictionary for certain information. These dictionaries often have identifiers. This, in fact, also applies to the Lithuanian example I'm working on. Each word, each lexeme, basically already has an identifier in the common dictionaries that you'll find. Right, permit, statements, forms. Here we have a nice audio. Let. Audio. That reminds me of something. In fact, there exists a tool to mass create these audio files. The tool is called Lingua Libre. And this is pretty convenient. You can import a query I don't know if you have attended the Sparkle session of ASAPS, but there's a query service on Wikidata where you can compile lists of lexemes, not just lexemes, in fact also Wikidata items. But in this case, the lexeme lists are important, where you can fetch, for example, lexemes that still lack an audio for certain forms. And then you can use this service, Lingua Libre, to import this list. And then one after another, this is a pretty quick process, you can record every of these words. And then it all immediately gets imported to the Wikimedia projects, because this Lingua Libre is a project, I think, by Wikimedia France, right? Yes, so this is connected with all the wiki projects. So you can easily, using this tool, mass record all the forms that are still lacking in audio. This is also something, when I first heard about the opportunity to upload audio files to Wikidata, I always thought, oh, that's a tedious process. This is going to never be realized, because it's such a tremendous amount of work to record even one audio. And this is a really great tool to get this done in a quick and efficient manner. So if you have fun recording your own voice, I would really recommend trying this out and recording some of the lexeme forms that have no audio yet. Spoiler, it's going to be most of them. Right. Are there maybe any questions if there's no willingness to create an lexeme here? Accents. Yes, that is. Yeah. You can do that, and you, as I've shown earlier, you can add more information to the things you are uploading. So you could add, the concrete realization will depend on the documentation that you're having, but you can then add a statement that this is this particular accent. So it's possible to include this information so that the person who is using it knows that this particular way of pronouncing it is representative of this regional accent of the language. It's entirely possible, yes.
In fact, Lingua Libre will ask you to give a profile. So you could say, are you a native speaker of this language? And what region or accent you have, so that you can mark it. This is a Norfolk accent, or Liverpool accent, or whatever.
Really nobody who wants to say a word.
Elephant.
Elephant, in which language?
I only speak English.
I fear the elephant lexeme will already exist, but maybe we can try to expand it a bit. Right. So it's even lacking statements, I see. It has identifiers. Interestingly, the definition of the first meaning has been given in Polish in addition to English. This is also a feature of Wikidata. You can define words or give them senses in any language you desire. So you don't necessarily have to come up with a definition in that very language. But if you, let's say, speak Spanish and want to define the English word elephant, you can also do that in Spanish. Right, here we also see that you can have an image of an elephant. Here we have a pretty impressive list of 5 translations. I think that could also be expanded in case anyone knows what an elephant is in further languages.
German.
German, Elefant, I think, is what we are trying to find. No match was found. Have I missed something? Let's see how it looks here. Elephant. should show, I think. Or does it not exist yet? No, but maybe this item does not exist yet, or this Lexeme rather. Let's try. This is, by the way you can conveniently search for lexemes. You just write an L colon and then the word that you're looking for. So here we have it in English, French, Latin, 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 and the other spelling that is possible in German. Ah, here it is. Here it is. So maybe let's try to add the lexeme number. Strange. Strange, strange, strange. I have no idea why this does not work. I fear so, yes. I fear so.
So I think one thing to show in the lexeme is the different senses and how you can map different senses of one word in different words in another language.
Can you remind me of the number?
4177.
So the first sense we see is to allow, not to prevent, which is a synonym to permit, while there are other rental property to another introduced quotative.
The second sense is to rent out.
Yes.
Completely different.
Yes. Yes, that's a completely different meaning, right? That's also a thing that Wikidata solves pretty nicely, that it keeps all the senses separate, and that you can only match together the exact equivalents. But as it always is with language, it's not always possible. But that's a pretty good solution that you can separate them like this. Here in the usage examples, you can also specify a specific sense. For example, this to rent out property has an actual usage example here added. She had taken a passage for Europe and was anxious to let the flat before she sailed. So you can see that you can also provide information that is restricted to one particular sense, if it's important. And that's very often important when it comes to language, indeed. Yes, you can add slang, but then you would specify it. It also applies to archaisms, to jargon, to basically anything. You can document anything, but you will have to specify then that this word is maybe dated or has changed over time. And that's also an interesting thing that you can then query afterwards. If you have a more complete set of lexemes, you can then make a list of all the slang words maybe, or see when these slang words first appeared. This is also information you could add theoretically, so there are many, many opportunities, not just to record the contemporary standard language, but also other senses that are maybe restricted to one region or one special community. That's all possible. You just specify it.
Because they're all Wikidata entities, you could, for example, document a slang term and add a property called earliest attested use or something like that. Right? What is the earliest time we see this slang term then you could start querying by that, right? And saying, you know, what are some 18th century slang terms that we know that are first documented in the 18th century or earlier? But like, what would be slang terms known in the 18th century, so that you don't accidentally use a 19th century slang term if you're writing period fiction, for example. You can imagine all kinds of uses like that. The moment you have it as structured data, everything I showed earlier about querying, etc., can then be done not just on things in the world, but also on words.
When it comes to queries, there's in fact a website on Wikidata where some people have thought of some ideas for example queries. And if you're interested, you can take a look at it, and it will also have some language-specific queries which you can then edit and try out for yourself to query a bit with the help of Lexemes. This is quite nice to try out for yourself. The longest word of a language for German. Let's try this one. Could be. I mean, that's the one that gets frequently quoted. But let's see what the query says. If it works. If it works. Somehow today, Wikidata does not really want to work quickly. An unexpected one first. The second one, this is popular, but it seems this query does include all forms. It does not just include the so-called dictionary form, the nominative, singular, blah, blah, blah. But in this case, it's the genitive form. Genitive form means it shows possession in this case. It would be something of that particular law that has this awful long name. This would be the second longest word that is included, or the second longest form that is included on Wikidata. Interestingly, it also appears to include idioms, which the query maybe shouldn't include, so that would be a small programming mistake maybe that could still be fixed, but it's interesting to know that you that you can't blindly rely on the queries, but also might have to adjust a thing or two if you see that the results don't exactly match your expectations. But what it did manage is to show us the longest word tracked on Wikidata, Grundstücksverkehrsgenehmigungszuständigkeitsübertragungsverordnung, which again is a kind of legal term, I suppose. Good. Well, great. If there are no questions now, I will maybe tell you a few venues where you can seek support in case you want to edit. Maybe if you show the slides, I have. Right. These are my favorite two venues where you get answers pretty fast, actually, even on Wiki. If you go to the talk page of the lexicographical data, I have uploaded the slides. You can just click on it if you don't want to look for it yourself. On the talk page of the lexicographical data page, you can just ask a question, and there are usually the same kind of people who track this page and then share their insights based on their own experience, how to handle a particular case in a particular way. And in addition to that, there's also the Telegram chat. I suppose the Telegram chat might lead to even quicker answers, but also shorter answers. So if you have a really long case, I would recommend to explain and post it on Wiki, on the talk page, because well, nobody wants to read text walls in a messenger. But for anything else, you can use the Telegram chat, which is quite active and you will certainly find someone who is willing to help you. What also is helping me with Lithuanian is the good old library. I have a book here in Lithuanian, the lexicography of the Lithuanian language, where intelligent people have already made some thoughts about how to categorize words, which categories make sense at all, which don't make sense, and for which reason they don't make sense, and for which reason the other categories do make sense. And that's, I think, a really useful inspiration if you really want to attempt creating a documentation for a language, that you also take a look at what other people have already maybe written about this topic. This is a complex topic, in fact. It's not really trivial. It's not something you can come up with within a day, how to organize such a database properly. So I think it's also a good idea to take a look at literature on this topic if you're really interested, if you really want to help. That's helping me, and I'm sure it also help others. Right, is there anything else I haven't mentioned yet? To the documentations, there's a general documentation page on Wikidata. Maybe I can open it. Could show my screen again. There is a general documentation with general guidelines that explain all these terms that you have heard today in a bit, well, I don't want to say detail, but in a way that maybe makes you recall what exactly is meant by sense or what exactly is meant by form. Here's also a useful table where you can take a look at good lexemes that are already pretty complete, or if not complete, that they have a lot of information stored. Such examples. I think also the one I have shown is also in this table here. Ukrainian, doesn't matter, but there are some examples where you can take inspiration from how to organize such a lexeme. And there is also a page on best practices, which I feel is a good inspiration. Yeah, best practices, which I feel is a good inspiration when writing the guidelines, that you keep these best practices a bit in mind when formulating your draft proposal, when discussing it with your community or with others, that you always keep these best practices in mind that experienced people have assembled on this page. Right. Any more questions? We have 5 more minutes. If there's nothing, we can have a break, I guess. They don't have a good microphone. We have 7 minutes, technically. Not enough?